Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat sermon with Rabbi Elliot Dorff.
So before I say what I'm about to say, I have to tell you that we have 4 children. Marlon and I have 4 children whom we not only love, but like. Okay? So that said, I once saw a bumper sticker that said, if I had known that grandchildren were like this, I would have started with them. Grandchildren, my grandparents died when I was very young, so the first time that I really had a sense of what it was to be a grandchild was when our first child was born. We were in New York at the time. We were in New York. I was in rabbinical school and doing my doctorate in philosophy. So when Marlon came home with Tammy, our first child, the next day my parents flew in from Milwaukee, and they rang the doorbell, and I opened the door, and my mother said, "Where's the baby?" Said, "Hello, Mom, remember me?" And then I found out exactly what my role in life was. The parents, grandparents, of course, have a role of spoiling their grandchildren. That I don't have to tell you, within limits, hopefully. If you want to maintain any kind of relationships with your children, then it has to be within limits. But the way that the tradition sees grandparents is really very different. You know that in the Shema V'shinantam Levanecha, you have to teach your children Torah in all kinds of ways. But the rabbis understood a verse in Deuteronomy to apply that to grandparents as well. The verse is V'hodatam Levanecha V'livnei Vanecha. This is in Deuteronomy chapter 4. And what it's saying is you will make it known to your children and to the children of your children. And what the context there is the story about the Exodus from Egypt. But the way the rabbis understand that verse is that grandparents have a duty to teach their grandchildren Torah just as much as parents have the duty to teach their children Torah. So how do you do that? Well, part of it is just modeling. It's modeling the way in which you live your life as a Jew, modeling the way you live your life as a person and as a member of the general community. And I must tell you that I've read maybe by now hundreds of admissions interviews, essays to rabbinical school, and a number of them talk about what they learned from their grandparents and some of the experiences they had with their grandparents. So you need to know. That doesn't mean that all your grandchildren will become rabbis. That's not what I'm talking about. But it really gives you a sense of the degree to which our memories of what we did with our grandparents can be not only long-lasting, but very important in a person's life. But you can also teach as part of creating a relationship. And this, I might say, I learned from Dr. Alvin Mars. Some of you may remember him. He was the director of Camp Ramah here in Ojai for a while, and then headed our education program at the university. And he started having weekly study sessions with each of his grandchildren. So I started doing that with my grandson who lived in New Jersey, and we did it on Skype at the time. Then it became FaceTime on Sunday mornings. And he was 10 years old at the time, and I said to him, "Zach, what do you want to study?" And he said, "Sefer Devarim, Deuteronomy." So I said, "Why Deuteronomy?" He said, because he didn't think his Solomon Schechter Day School would ever get there. And he was right. By the time he finished 8th grade, they were in Shemot, in Exodus. Right? So we studied Deuteronomy for about a year and a half, and then I helped him prepare for his bar mitzvah. At which time he told me, Saba, I'm not going to be a rabbi. I said, it's okay, Zach, there are many other things to do in life that are really good. And through his teenage years, we studied every Sunday morning, different things, including some philosophical stuff. And so when he finished college a year ago in economics and finance, but with a minor in philosophy, I'll take credit for that. Thank you. So And that kind of relationship was not only built upon the study of the text, because to be very honest, in the hour or so that we had each week, at least half an hour was talking about other things. And I have no regrets about that whatsoever. The study session can be used as an excuse to talk about all kinds of things, but just to make sure that you get together and talk to each other at least once a week, even if they're 3,000 miles away. Now I do it on Sunday mornings with Shira, my granddaughter who lives in Philadelphia, and with Miles, my grandson who lives 5 miles from me, right? But if he's up at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning, that's a good thing, right? Sometimes I wake him up. I'm sorry, when I call him at 10. That's what it means to be a teenager. It's really fine. The other way in which one can think about this, though, is helping to provide the Jewish education for your grandchildren. If you are in an economic position to help with their Hebrew school tuition or day school tuition or Camp Ramah tuition, right, that's one way of carrying out this mitzvah that you have. Right? Now remember, you can feel very good about yourself if you're helping to give a Jewish education to your grandchildren, but not too good, because actually what you're doing is fulfilling a commandment that you have within the tradition. Okay? I'm not trying to impose guilt here. I'm just trying to indicate to you that the way that the tradition sees it is that this is really an obligation that we as grandparents have for the Jewish education of our children. And what are we trying to get them to understand? Well, it's what's in the second parasha for today. That, because we're on the triennial cycle, we didn't read. But it's you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy, is the way it starts out. And that is sort of the header of what it means to be holy in the Jewish tradition. And you have, you respect your parents, keep Shabbat, have honest weights and measures, take care of the poor. Don't bear a grudge or take vengeance. Come to the aid of somebody in need. You may not stand idly by the blood of your brother. Learn how to give creative criticism. Ultimately, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. All of that is Leviticus 19, the second parasha for today, which talks about what it means to be a holy people and what it means to be a Jew. And so consequently, ultimately, what we as grandparents are trying to teach our children is all of that. All of that by the way we live our lives, all of that by the way we interact with them, and also by the way we try to teach them in a very sort of classical way of teaching in terms of saying what really matters to us. One other way in which you can do that is by creating a family history. You can do that. I learned how to do that a long time ago, and so Marlon and I, each of us wrote out our family histories, which we then shared with our children, and now we have shared them with our grandchildren as well. We wrote them out. This was a long time ago. Now you can record them in the various ways that you can record them. And even if, I remember, I'm sorry that I didn't think to do this with my parents, but with Marlon's parents, I took a video recorder at the time, right? And Marlon didn't want to hear these stories again, right? But I had never heard the stories. So you start out with what are your earliest memories, right? Who was there? What were they doing? How were they related to you? In what way did they affect you, right? You just start asking questions chronologically, and I did that first with my mother-in-law and then with my father-in-law, and then I asked Marlon whether she wanted to hear the tapes, and so we listened to my father-in-law first, and she stopped one of them. She said, "He didn't tell the story that way the last time he told it to me," and I said, "Well, that's fine, because this is not for public consumption. This is for the family, and even if the children don't want to hear the stories again, the grandchildren really do." So another way in which you can teach the tradition and teach to your grandchildren is by telling them your family history and the way in which your family acted as Jews, sometimes in very trying circumstances, sometimes not. But the way in which that's a way of giving them a sense of continuity and roots. All of these ways of fulfilling this mitzvah that we have, of teaching our grandchildren as well as our children, is something that I think we as grandparents should really love to do and do effectively.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.